What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I'm super excited. I have Ben Bierly. He is running for state senate here in Illinois. As most of you know, here in Illinois, we are fighting a pretty major political battle here that's affecting all of the residents. And Ben has got such a great platform, and I'm fully in support of him, and I want to get his message out there. So, Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Because you've actually been kind of involved in government for a very long time, correct?
Yes, I was, of course, in the Marine Corps for 20 years. I graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1994 and went into the Marine Corps, did 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. Essentially, I've been all over the world doing exercises, seeing what poverty really looks like, and just some of the awful things that happen in other countries. I did a lot of policy work with, supply chain management and logistics. And then when I retired in 2013, I started teaching at a high school here in Illinois, did that for 3 years. And since 2016, I've been teaching political science at 2 colleges here in Illinois. So it's really, I've had, if you will, just a life of public service and really just dedicated to the idea of serving the people. And I continue to do that now.
That's wonderful, and that's another reason why I wanted to get you on here and just hear from you and get you out to my audience that in my reach. You also are a father of 5, correct?
Yeah, I am. That's one thing about the military. I don't know. I think it's the idea that we may have to take a life that we understand, or we come to terms with the value of life. And you'll see a lot of military families tend to have large families, and we're no exception to that. We have 4 boys and then 1 girl.
Oh, so I'm the oldest of 5. So there's me. I have 2 sisters and 2 younger brothers. My one youngest brother was a Marine. He did a couple tours in Afghanistan as well. But so what made you start running for office? I mean, we have a lot of crazy stuff going on here in Illinois. So what drove you to make that decision?
Well, like I said, I teach political science, and I've been, involved in public service all my life. And I'm teaching this stuff and watching, if you will, a train wreck happen in slow motion down in Springfield. And, looking at my kids, I can't sit on the sidelines and not do something. I got to go help. I got to stop this train wreck, or get us out of it before it really comes to completion here, and it's coming soon. So I can't sit on the sidelines and do nothing. I needed to put my expertise, if you will, into the ring and fight for the people. So
I love that. Not too many people have that mentality. And how I met you is I started going to the rallies because of what we're going through here, and I was very excited to meet you and the difference that you're making, and listening to your speeches. So do you want to tell a little bit about your campaign and what you're all about, so people can understand what they would look forward to if they did vote you into office?
Okay, I like to tell people that. Having been in the Marine Corps, I understand what government ought to be doing, especially, I have the degree to support that.
Sure.
And I'm running because we need some responsibility down there in Springfield. If I ever did what those politicians do with regard to the budget, and I did have to do budget planning and execution in the Marine Corps. If I ever missed my budget, by going over, by obligating the government against funds that didn't have, I would certainly be in a whole lot of hot water and probably be going to a federal penitentiary for doing that. It's called the Anti-Deficiency Act. So I never missed my budget, never went over. And I also never missed my mission. So why can't we do that down in Springfield? The answer is that we have people who are self-interested, who are looking to get themselves rich rather than serve the people. We don't need them in office. We need people who understand what it means to be a public servant. So I'm fighting for that. I'm also fighting for our liberties, which is why I've been participating in the protests and actually out front. This on Monday was my 8th protest.
Was it really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
I've seen you at what? Has it been 4, 3 or 4? I've seen you at 3 or 4 at least.
Yeah. At least 3. I know for sure. So I'm fighting for that. I'm fighting for some responsibility back into the government. We need to actually get our taxes down. There are two things that seem contradictory that we have here in Illinois. We have the largest tax burden of any other state in the United States. Simultaneously with that, we have also the worst credit rating. We have the worst debt of any state in the United States. And by the way, our politicians down there just voted on a budget that makes it even worse. They voted on a budget that essentially plans on a bailout from the federal government, which is a crazy thought. But, here we are again. We don't have responsible people down there. They're just trying to maintain power and get themselves rich off of our dime, if you will. So
pretty disturbing. It's a very disturbing thought, and it's been very scary to watch. And like I said before we jumped on here, like I've never gotten involved and had a very strong voice in regards to politics. But after what we've gone through with this whole pandemic, I mean, I don't really believe in it. I'm what you'd probably call more of a conspiracy theorist in regards to what's been happening with all of this, because to me, when it first happened, it didn't make sense to me at all. Like
I have a theory about conspiracies, actually. I have this theory about conspiracies.
Okay.
Yes, we may have 1 or 2 individuals who actually are trying to do conspiracies, but the fact of the matter is we as a nation are just too dumb to be able to pull off a conspiracy, at least in the government. Sooner or later it's going to fall apart because we got people can't keep their mouths shut. So well,
I mean, we had the mayor say the New World Order. She said it on video.
Yeah, she did. So
that's what I'm talking about. I'm referring to that, like this whole.
So she's one of the few that I would say are in that idea that we need to push toward a new world, like a one world government. But the fact of the matter is she doesn't have enough people in her government to be able to maintain that. So
Sure.
And so it's going to get out, and so people like us are going to stand up and fight for our liberties.
Yeah.
It's important, bringing that back to the protests. Why are we having these protests? It's not that we don't believe that there's a virus out there, and it's not that we weren't cooperating at first.
Sure. Right.
I think about everybody, the first 30 days, we recognized the governor's authority within an emergency decree. The first 30 days are the governor's, okay? And we as citizens ought to cooperate with that. After 30 days, though, we need to start asking some hard questions, because if the governor continues after that point, as Pritzker has, without any plan to change or to call in, if you will, the legal aspects of it, by calling the legislature into an emergency session, as he should have done, well, guess what? His authorities run out, and it ran out on April 19th. And that's why we stood up and said, okay, why people may not agree with the timing of it, the fact of the matter is our liberties started to be threatened on April 19th. And that's when we started to say, okay, enough is enough. You don't have the authority to continue on. It's time to start fighting against any kind of unconstitutional or unlawful use of government to keep us from doing anything. So that's really why we see these, the protests. There are other reasons as well, picking and choosing which businesses are going to succeed and fail with this virus, and all the misinformation that we've seen. I've come out and publicly called Pritzker a liar because he's used the media to besmirch us, the protesters, calling us a hate group, saying that we've threatened him, and none of that is true at all.
That's all just for drama, dramatics.
Well,
I mean,
sure.
Certainly he's not feeling threatened. Like, he's not feeling any kind of way. He's actually, and he's playing into it too. He's made statements that aren't. I followed up with one of my sources that's actually involved in the state level of law enforcement, and a lot of things that the governor said, they've never got those orders. So he was talking out of both sides of his mouth. And so when I would see it, and because I was told, like, if I had any questions, I could ask them. So I'm like, okay, have you seen this? Is this true? He just laughs and said, we never got these orders. He's doing that just for the media. So it's just very interesting how the media and these politicians behind the media are using it to their advantage and creating such a stronghold on these people here in our state and in the nation, to create this fear that has prevented them from realizing, like, whoa, my rights are being taken away. Like, for me, I'm like, no, I'm like, no, fuck you. Excuse my language, but like, fuck you. We are free. Like, this, it's our God-given right to live a free life. Like, no way. Nope.
Yeah, we are citizens, not subjects. So we certainly maintain our rights. Our rights are not given to us by the government. The government's job is to protect our rights, not to decide when we can enjoy our rights or what rights we get to enjoy. Their job is to protect our rights.
Yes.
We have certain responsibilities as citizens, but one of those responsibilities is to stand up to the government anytime and every time that they threaten those liberties. Because our liberties, our ability to live our lives and make our own decisions is what really has made this nation great. You look at it, Adam Smith talks about the invisible hand of the economy. The fact that we've allowed that invisible hand to operate is why we've had such a strong economy through the years. In talking about free market, not crony capitalism, but actual free market, is because we cherish liberty in this country. And by the way, that is based entirely on Christian principle, as is the Constitution, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Christian, so yeah.
Hey,
I'm all about it. Like, we're definitely on the same page, and that was why it was important for me to get you on here and have you talk about where you stand and all that. So if things kept going the way that they're going and people didn't stand up, what would you be afraid that would happen? So let's just hypothetically, if we just sat back and didn't stand up and fight for our rights, what do you think would happen to us as a society?
The danger, I think, is that we would get used to the government telling us how we can live. And despite the fact that our freedoms are protected, if you look at people who have called me bad names on my own site, Facebook, they're not really interested about their rights. They're really looking at it in fear, and not necessarily in the idea that we can protect ourselves and protect our rights at the same time.
Sure.
So if you take that to its logical conclusion, we know that there's an element that wants to push us towards socialism and communism. And by the way, both are in fact the same. It's just how they arrive at the destination is different. So there are elements, and if you want to talk about a conspiracy, there's one. Okay, so I guess I gotta admit
Well,
that.
I think that
Uh,
there is some, between New York, California here, and there's another state, like there's
mm,
kind of going through the same thing where it is like trying to push us in that direction. I feel like, I mean, whether they would be successful or not, I mean, I heard some horror story. Oh, Washington was. I heard Washington was really bad. They were legitimately on the hunt looking for people that weren't following the stay-at-home orders, which I feel is very bothersome. Like I like to have an actual, the police out there hunting people down to see if they're not following stay-at-home orders. That's terrifying.
well, things like that, and even let's bring up the whole contact trace
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
If we stand back and allow that to happen, well, we're asking for it ourselves. Contact trace actually violates both the HIPAA and the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. And so as much as we allow it to happen and allow them to tell us that this needs to be done and they're going to do it, that we're giving up our liberties by allowing that to happen. Not to say that, in a pandemic situation that contact trace isn't a good idea. I'm not saying that at all. But to do it on the level that they're suggesting here is just absolutely ridiculous. You look at contact trace for something like Ebola to make sure that it doesn't spread anymore. But, when you talk about the coronavirus, when, millions and millions are already infected, there's no utility to actually doing contact trace at this point for coronavirus. So what's the real purpose behind it? It's really government believing that they know better than we do how to live our own lives. And essentially, that's kind of the basis for any socialist type of political institution. It's the idea that some elite group know how to live our lives better than we do. They know how to run the country better than we do. They know how to run our businesses better than we do. And that is just absolutely ridiculous. It's proven to be a failure every single time it's done. You look at the Soviet Union back when it was the USSR, it ran itself in the ground because it maintained its ideological consistency, if you will. So it ran itself into the ground, thankfully, because it was really dangerous. But China sort of broke off. They saw the economic disaster coming, and so they broke off the economy from political communism. And they kept the political communism and loosened up the economic ideology to allow a lot more freedom or independent action within the economy, which is why they survived. So to think that we're going in that direction though is scary, because what does it mean? Then dissenters have to be silenced. Either they have to be forced to participate in contact trace, or they have to be forced to take to get the vaccine, for example. Well, first of all, if you had the coronavirus, you don't need the vaccine. I can't understand that one.
There's a lot of misinformation around. So I have a strong immune system. I've been going to the rallies. I've been fine. I have not had any issues. And the numbers that have been reported around it, just a lot of it, like they've redone the numbers. We know that they're getting extra money if they report a coronavirus infection. So there's so much stuff behind.
There's incentive for the hospitals to lie.
Yes.
Crazy.
I mean, just some of the stuff that's out there around this, it's very disturbing. So I'm not for it. And that if you have an iPhone, that you need to turn off your updates, because it legitimately says that they will update it so that they can trace you. They can do the tracing. Did you know that?
No, I actually don't use an iPhone.
But there is something for your Samsung as well, or whatever you
Okay,
use. So
okay.
make sure you look into that so you don't automatically update and they don't put that. You do have to have the corresponding app, but for me, I turn it off because I'm not taking any chances. So just
Yeah,
FYI.
I see that. I understand that. That's scary, the
Yeah.
amount of data they can collect on us. And if they start using that, um, honestly, if there were, in fact, a socialist takeover of our country, they would come after people like me very quickly.
Sure.
Um, and after me, they would start coming at people like you.
Yes.
Um,
I know that because I'm not going to be going for it. Like I
well,
just like
oh, a lot
I'll
of
be
people.
putting up a fight. They'll probably have to kill me.
Yeah, yeah. After I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Well, good. So you'll take one for
I,
the team.
I wouldn't go down. I wouldn't go down without a fight. I got a family to protect.
Yeah.
I served in our government, and I continue, if you will. Public colleges are still part of the government, but that doesn't mean that I think that the government is right all the time. We forget our place sometimes.
Yeah.
Our place is to serve the people, uh, not have the people serve us.
Right.
Like I said before, we are citizens. We are not subjects. There's a
Yeah.
big difference between the two,
Yeah.
and we need to keep that in mind. That government works for the people.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
It gets back to the whole reason why I'm running is because we need people who are going to be responsible, who are going to lower the tax burden for the people, who are going to lower the spending in a responsible manner to a point where we can live without this enormous burden on our state, on the people of the state specifically.
I
So,
find it. I feel like it's going to be hard to. It's hard to believe that the taxes are going to be lowered only because of how much money that people are getting right now. Additional funds people are getting right now, but by being unemployed. I was so I'm furloughed. My job, they told me they were going to furlough us for 3 to 4 months. It's going to be unpaid. We still have medical coverage, which is great.
yep,
And I
right.
didn't even realize and I've said this several times to people, but I didn't even realize that we were getting that extra money through unemployment. So I was tightening up the purse strings. I was getting ready to like, no, okay, I'm not going to have, this and that and the other thing. And then my one girlfriend told me, she's like, oh yeah, you get an extra $600 a week. And I was like, for what? She's like, well, for unemployment. I said I had a very good job, so I made good money. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a very nice job, so I know what I was making. Not everybody was making what I make. I'm like in that top percentage, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" There's gonna be so many people that are. It's like to me, it's like a bribe. It's like they're bribe. You're
It
getting
is.
paid a bribe.
What's the incentive then to come off of unemployment?
Right. Well, it ends the end of July, but it's like exactly like so. Why would you want to go back to work then?
Well, this is another thing that people don't understand. Just to talk a little bit about economy and this our pandemic response. You had the governor tell people, well, you don't have to pay your mortgage for 3 months, or you don't have to pay your rent for 3 months. Guess what happens on month 4? You have to pay back all those previous months and month 4 all at the same time. So you have to then come up with 4 months worth of mortgage or rent to pay. And so because people haven't been working, of course, it's going to be hard for them to do that. And essentially, what's going to happen in month 4 is people are going to start losing their homes. That's what's going to happen. That's
Well,
what.
so I did a forbearance agreement on my home because I didn't know what to expect. Like I was just wanting to protect myself, and my mortgage company gave me their. So as a forbearance agreement, at the end of it, you are supposed to pay it up back 100%. But if you cannot pay
Yeah.
it back 100%, you can refinance and get yourself in a position where you can start paying your mortgage again. So I hear what you're saying, but
Well, that's good news.
yeah.
But how
I'm
many?
sure I can't imagine that they're going to start foreclosing on all these homes after we've survived. What was it, the depression in 2007, 2008, when
Mhm.
people lost a lot. So I've already been doing my homework on what I'm going to do because I'm not losing my home. That's not happening.
Well, Deanna, you're a smart lady, and I'm making sure I'm not going to lose my home either. But understand that most people take what the government says for granted, and they
Sure.
don't look any further. So it's going to be a surprise to a lot of people, I think. And so it's good that we at least talk about it
Yeah.
and understand that you're probably talking about. I imagine that you have a regular bank that you went through.
They service the loan.
Okay, so if you get your loan through a company that just does mortgages and they're not a regular bank, they don't necessarily have the ability to let you refinance. Okay,
Sure.
in that, and I have a friend who happens to be a vice president of a national bank, who sort of filled me in on the forbearance issue. So banks that have loans have access to, if you will, the federal pot of money
Sure.
to refinance people like you, but that is not a granted, that's not a given for every situation, and people need to know that.
Sure. Well,
Hopefully
let's
we'll
just
be able
pray
to
and keep our fingers
finance
crossed that
people. I would love to see that, but I am concerned that what's going to happen is, all these people who are supposedly stayed healthy by staying home are going to find themselves homeless. That's my concern, really,
well, let's
honestly.
pray that that does not happen. Let's pray that they are
Absolutely.
smart enough to use their resources. And because regardless if you are refinancing after something like this or you're just refinancing in general, that's a fight. That's a whole process. I had to
It is.
refinance commercial buildings. I've had to refinance homes. Like that's a very tedious process. So hopefully that most people will be given the resources and the tools to know what they have to do to get that done. Because at the end of the day, I'm hoping that after all this is said and done, that the mortgage companies and the banks are not going to want people to lose their homes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the banks do. I would never throw that on somebody because banks honestly, it's a lot of trouble for them to pick up
Yes.
a
Yeah.
home,
It
because
takes
their
about a
financial obligation doesn't go away just because they have a home.
right
Um, so it's better for them to keep somebody in it,
for sure.
than yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up. We're at about the 30-minute mark. So why don't you plug your where people can follow your campaign, follow you, and if you
Sure.
want to donate to your campaign, let's hear all your links. And I will also place them in the body of the description of this episode as well.
Okay, if you could go and make sure you link my Facebook page out
Yes.
there, it's Ben for Illinois State Senate, 43rd District, on Facebook. But my website is ben4illinois.com. That's Ben, the number 4illinois.com. And I'd just like to say, just as a final plug, really, look, we tend to think that, oh, I'm not smart enough to run, or I don't have the qualifications. That's absolutely not true. If you're listening to this, you probably already have everything you need to run for office, and we need people who are going to fight for the people, quite honestly, not fight to make themselves rich,
Sure.
because government service is never about that. And I'm willing to help people get started. So if you go to my website at ben4illinois.com, ben4illinois.com, send me a message, and I'll try to even put a link on the front page. I'm actually going to have a lot out there. You will be able to then contact me, let me know that you're thinking about running, and we can talk a little bit. Also, right there on the front page, you see a little coffee cup. You can buy me a cup of coffee. That's just a way to give a small donation, or you can choose a larger one.
Sure.
And definitely, it's been hard, by the way, to fundraise in this environment.
Yeah.
So it's very important that people like you who are listening right now, that if you want to see the right people get in office, you can't just vote and hope that they make it in. You got to support them. So please make sure that you go to my website, Ben, the number 4illinois.com, and and send me a message and send me a small donation. I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben, so much for joining us. As always, you guys, thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And stay tuned for next time. This is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free.